Welcome along to What a Shout, the weekend preview with wise words from our resident experts, and we've also got a special guest this week. If you are looking at the trainer's chart for profit loss, we're going to speak to the man who is head and shoulders above the rest. We've got TV action from Kempton and Warwick. I'm delighted to be joined by resident What a Shout guru Paul Kealy. Keels, it's dry January. It starts late for you, doesn't it? Tell us why.
Starts late for me, yes, because I always like to go to the Veterans Chase final at Sandown and have a good drink there, and then after that pack it in. So dry rest of January and most of February. I won't be touching a drop until Cheltenham previews start, I think.
Brilliant. And as we approach Saturday, if naught is you haven't got a clue and don't fancy a single horse, and 10 is you've got a 5-star selection for every race, where are your confidence
I'm
levels?
7 or 8. I like quite a few, actually, yeah.
Oh, I like that. OK, we'll find out who Keels fancies. And we've also got from our sponsors, Pat Cooney. Pat, it's the second week of Bet365's non-runner, no-bet for all the Cheltenham races. Who's the hot ticket?
Well, it's the 5 championship races. There's the Champion Hurdle, Champion Chase, Ryanair, Stayers and Gold Cup. Been very popular. And the theme seems to be people getting with horses that have things to prove, i.e. disappointed last time. The best case example is Chasson Persoir in the Champion Chase we've laid at 8-1. And, of course, he's been to England twice, disappointed. And were he to come out and impress over Leopardstown in a couple of weeks' time, he might be back in business. So people are working on the basis, well, what if he did come out and win well? He'll probably be around about 4-1, certainly in the equation with the likes of Shiskin and Enorgame. But if he disappointed, I suppose he won't even turn up. So for horses very much like that with things to prove. And a horse like Champ, for example, in the Gold Cup, we've got him penciled in as maybe going for the Stayers, where he's, legitimate second or third favourite. But he's round about 14-1 non-runner, no bet for the Gold Cup. Now, he's owned by JP McManus. If they decide we're going to go for the Gold Cup, he's surely going to be a single-figure price. So horses who are yet to be completely confirmed for the race, but would be significant players were they to run in the race. So it's an interesting market, and it's been a worthwhile exercise doing.
Excellent. It's a really interesting time for Cheltenham anti-post punters. Some firms like 365 do non-runner, no bet. Others still haven't. So you shop around and play your tactics, and there's a lot of people trying to build their portfolios now. OK, the boys are ready. On with the action. Now then, delighted to be joined all the way from beautiful Exmoor by Jeremy Scott. Now then, Jeremy is absolutely head and shoulders above the rest of his training colleagues in terms of level stakes profit loss for 2022. We'll find out a bit about that later on. But first of all, Jeremy, thank you very much for joining us. We do need to start, obviously, with an update on Matt Griffiths. Matt, obviously involved in that tragic car crash at the back end of last year, which left him critically ill. I think we heard from you about a month ago, Jeremy, that good news that he was on the mend. What's the latest?
Well, he's comes up and sees us fairly regularly, and we're looking forward to seeing him tomorrow, actually. There is some talk that he might even sit on a horse. So, wow. The progress is good, but he's still got a long way to go, and he's certainly a long way to go before he'd actually race right.
Fantastic. It's great to hear that he's on the mend. Now then, Jeremy, we were hoping to see a horse that certainly the three of us in the studio, and I'm sure loads and loads of racing fans have, as one of their absolute favourites, the great Dashel Drasher. It looked like he might run in the Silvino Conti at Kempton on Saturday. He's not going to go now. So what are the revised plans, and why aren't we seeing him tomorrow?
Yeah, well, we were keen to run, but ideally I'd have wanted a bit more rain. The ground, I think, is good to soft in places, and over a sharp 2.5 miles, I just felt it might be a bit too quick for him. So we've actually opted to go to the Lingfield race next Sunday, which is 2 miles 6. The ground's probably going to be soft, almost heavy in places, could be very tacky, but we thought that was probably a better test for him than Kempton.
And having seen the race cut up to the 4 runners, is there a bit of you that thinks, I wouldn't have minded leaving him in?
Well, that's always the risk, isn't it? And we've no idea what will be running next week. But the other point was that possibly the Newbury race was only 17 days ago, and maybe that might have come too soon for him anyway. But we we've taken that route, and you've got to make a decision and stick with it, haven't you?
Absolutely. And it's a great new source of prize money, that Lingfield weekend, isn't it? And it looks like, I mean, if you schedule a jumps meeting at Lingfield in the middle of winter, you are taking a chance, aren't you? Because it only takes a 5-minute shower and it goes heavy. The forecast is fairly dry there for the next few days, so it looks like you should get your ground. And that meeting, I mean, like I say, I'm sure for all you trainers, when you read about a new venture like that with all the prize money, you must think this is a great fillip for the sport.
Well, absolutely. And I think the main thing is that these races have to be supported. And I feel sorry for Kempton that this race is probably taken away from that, because I think the ones that aren't running that were entered at Kempton are probably going to end up at Lingfield. But, it's a great initiative. And I know that Lingfield have got plans to improve the track over the next few years. Hopefully the drainage will be better, and they will be able to get the meeting on more regularly.
Absolutely. Now then, with a lot of horses of Dashel Drasher's quality, there's various targets for the festival, but I don't think we need to worry too much. It's Ryanair all the way, isn't it?
Yeah, that would be the aim. We just need soft enough ground.
Absolutely. And if it's good to soft, will you think about it, or does it have to start with soft?
I think it would want to be genuine good to soft. Our main target at the moment really is the Ascot Chase, the end of February. Cheltenham comes plenty quick enough after that, but certainly if it was properly the soft side of good to soft, as it were, we'd be keen. And
Jeremy, one more on Dashel. I mean, I think 2 miles 6 is the furthest he's ever been. How tempted are you to stick him up to 3?
Well, with hindsight, in a way, I wish we'd run him at Kempton in the King George, because the ground actually came probably soft enough. But yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to see him over 3 miles. But in all honesty, he's very effective over 2.5. If it isn't broken, why fix it?
Yeah, he obviously stays very well at Ascot. Ascot's a really, really stiff track, isn't it? With 2 mile 5 there, I don't think he'd have any problems with 3, especially around Kempton. It's just one of those things throughout the autumn. It was so dry, wasn't it? And even the week before, we were expecting goodish ground at Kempton, weren't we? So it sort of surprised everybody that it became really testing, didn't it?
Absolutely. And at what point did the light bulb flash above your head and think, hang on a sec, there's this hurdles race, this will do for him? Because he was brilliant there, wasn't he? It was classic Dashel, kicked on, and they weren't getting past him that day, were they?
Yeah, well, we always felt we had a little bit of unfinished business with hurdles. And we were just, because we hadn't run at Christmas, we were keen to get a run into him. Otherwise, we weren't going to have a run for 8 weeks. So it just looked a nice chance to have a go. And yeah, the weights just helped us out as well.
It's 5 in a row for him over hurdles as well, isn't it? I think there's a big gap between the last one, but it's something like that, isn't it?
Yeah. He's a terrific.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no. And, when he won at Cheltenham, I think the last time he ran, you just felt there was still more to come.
Excellent. Well, Dashel Drasher won't be running this weekend, but you do have a favourite in one of the TV races, Jeremy, in the 132 at Kempton on Saturday. And that lovely, consistent sort of Champagne Court heads the market for that race. He must be a bit of a stable legend, isn't he?
Yeah, he's been a great fun horse. His novice chase season was really good, and he lost his way over fences last year, and we popped him back over hurdles, try and get his confidence up, and that seems to have done the trick. So I hope he'll run a nice race. But, he needs to step up on what he's done, last year.
When you see him head in the market for that, have you had a chance to really go through the runners? Do you think he's the worthy favourite? Is he the one to beat in your view?
I think he's probably got the best recent form. I thought the third favourite, I can't remember the name of the horse. It was, sorry?
Foxborough?
Yeah, was it 7th last time out?
No,
but it had won it previous. There's one that's won its last 3, and 3 with one blip, as it were. I thought that looked a very competitive horse. But no, look, I think he's entitled to be favourite, and we're looking forward to running him.
OK, well, your last Saturday winner certainly wasn't favourite. Pillsdown Pen, who won at 80-1, having shown very well. I think, putting it politely, is very little in his previous races. What did you say to the owner in the paddock? What was the mood? Was it just, well, let's keep our fingers crossed, or did you see anything in him that you thought, actually, do you know what? He might be worth a cheeky fiver here.
Well, it was interesting. Rex came into the paddock and he said, this horse should no way be 100-1, which is what it was when he was sitting in the weighing room beforehand. And we all looked at each other and said, well, surely that's worth an each-way bet because, you know, whilst he hadn't shown a lot, this is the first time we'd had him on soft ground, and I thought he was sort of crying out for soft ground. And, you know, it was a bit of an insult to the handicapper. I mean, the handicapper is usually relatively right. He doesn't take any chances, but, you know, 80-1, I just thought was too big a price.
Fantastic. I think he was fairly slow away. I don't think he was particularly fluent at the first, but he got it done fantastically in the end, didn't he? So now that you know you've got this horse that can win decent quality races on soft, I mean, it's quite an exciting one for the future now, isn't he?
Well, I think if we can replicate the conditions and, you know, I think he looked like he could possibly stay a little bit further as well, then it'd be nice to think we could rack up a little sequence with him.
Fantastic. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us on What a Shout today. All the best of luck with Champagne Court tomorrow and obviously with Dashel Drasher, not just at Lingfield on Sunday week, but for the future as well. Let's hope he gets the job done because we're all big Dashel Drasher fans. Thanks very much for joining us, Jeremy.
No, thank you very much. Pleasure.
That was Jeremy Scott, and now we're going to look ahead to the weekend's races. Okay, let's get stuck into the weekend TV highlights and start the 205 at Kempton. It's the Coral Silviniaco Conti Chase. As we heard, it's cut up just the 4 runners, but that doesn't mean it's easy to solve, does it, Paul Kealy?
This is the trickiest race on the card. Forget your Lanzarote hurdle and your classic chase. You've got 4 runners here, and we've got more holes in them than a cheese grater, aren't they? I mean, they are like, you know, Mr. Fisher. I mean, ridiculously talented horse. I mean, when he ran in the Ryanair last year, he walked through half a dozen fences. He was still cantering at the top of the hill. Ended up being pulled up. He pulled up in the King George. He's clumsy. I don't actually think he wants to win either. Got worried out of a race at Sandown, didn't he? At the end of last season, and he's favourite, like 13-8 or 15-8 or whatever. So, but then you've got Defi de Sawyer, 2-time Cheltenham Festival winner. He's the rag, but he's been running like a rag for ages. And you've got Rouge Vif, who
he's more like Rogue Vif now. Yeah, who's
got a really good record first time out, but was tailed off on his return. I mean, you know, the figure he put up wasn't horrific by any stretch of the imagination, but still a long way below his best. And he goes up to 2 mile 4 for the first time. Did win 2 mile 2 over hurdles as a novice, so, you know, it's possible. So process of elimination is the only horse that's actually been running to form, and that's Eldorado Allen. Obviously, he's won the Horgan Gold Cup earlier this season and then finished third in the Peterborough at Huntingdon to First Flow and Funambule Civila, who Funambule Civila looks like a 2 miler all the way, canted all the way through it. Eldorado Allen looked like a horse who wanted more than 2.5 miles for most of it as well, even though he'd won 2-2 at Exeter. So I think with the bit softer ground, because it was quite quick conditions at Peterborough, I think that'll suit him. And I think he's probably the one to beat. He's got the £6 penalty, which makes it harder because he wouldn't come out as the best horse at the weights, but process of elimination, he's the horse that's in form, and the Tizzards are coming back into form as well.
I was looking at this. This is an absolute process of elimination job, isn't it? Do you think you would have tipped Dashel if he turned up, despite the trainer's misgivings about the ground?
I think he'd have been borderline odds on Dashel Drasher. Yeah. I do, yeah.
Pat Cooney, what do you make of this? Is this a process of elimination? Are you going to put your faith in one of these horses that's totally off the boil, or stick with the kind of solid option in Eldorado Allen?
As we know, there's 4 runners in the race. If there was a box with the option none of the above, I would tick none of the above, because I can get them all beat. I don't think anything will win it.
I reckon something will. That's about as certain as I can get.
You look at Mr. Fisher. His form figures, they read like a postcode, don't they?
Yeah, they're Scrabble, aren't they? Yeah. They're not numbers.
Defi de Sol, I just think, honestly, that one's 6-1 in a race where none of them can win. It's his second run back since a wind up. People often say the second run back after wind up is more opportune than the first one back. He's too talented to be the rag of the party in a race like this. I just think Defi de Sol is overpriced.
He did this before though, didn't he? He had one season where I think it was 18-19, where he just went completely
Yeah,
off the
yeah.
board, and everyone thought, that's a shame, that's
Something
him
like
done. And then he
49.
came back.
He
and was
was
different.
49 for the champion chase before
was,
blowing out, but he
he
hasn't been
was.
the same since, has he?
No,
He
it's
actually went well for a really long way on his return, but then
Very
just
strange.
faded so tamely.
I guess, Pat, you're working on the theory of which horse, if it won, would I kick myself hardest if I hadn't backed? And,
Yes.
And if you're getting 5-1 or whatever down.
Yeah, I mean, if I backed Mr. Fisher at less than 2-1 and he got beaten, I'd be thinking, of all the horses at under 2-1 to have a bet on today, you backed him? I couldn't be backing him. I backed him in the Ryanair. As Keel said, he just walked through half a dozen fences and that was it. Yes, most talented in the race, probably. Bet no. I'd rather take my chances with Defi, and if he disappoints again, then so be it. But at least I've gone down with a degree of value in my back pocket.
It's meant to be the Lanzarote that has everyone scratching their heads. They can't even agree on the 4-runner race. Let's switch our attention now to Warwick. The 225s, the Ballymore Leamington Novice Hurdle. Potentially some Cheltenham clues on for here. Hendo's got the favourite. Will he win? Pat Cooney.
A horse that's improving race by race by race. I'm not convinced he represents
Let's
value.
give us his name.
Surrey Quest, a 5-year-old. And as I say, debut run, OK, improved next time out and improved again. He's going to have to improve again a little bit more this time around. He's one of those, why is he favourite? Well, it says N. Henderson, and he's got a progressive profile. The form reads well. He's not got that much in hand. Party Business fell in the Challow behind Stage Star, who everyone's a fan of. So he's in the equation. He wouldn't have won that day, but the form would have looked good. I keep coming back to Staghorn, Archie Watson, hardly known for his 2-mile 5 winning hurdlers, but he was a thorough stayer on the flat. He ran well on his hurdling debut. Stepping up to 2 miles 5, you think, yeah, that could suit him. So I'll go for the stamina-laden Staghorn as my value pick in this one.
OK, yeah, Archie Watson obviously had a difficult week, hasn't he? He lost his star sprinter, didn't he? Dragon Symbol to Roger Varian, so I'd be keen to have a win here. Do you agree with Pat on Staghorn? Or are you going to
Yeah, I mean, I think you did. The race he won at Hereford, I looked at it and I thought, well, it didn't look, I mean, he made a meal of it, but the runner-up looks really tough, came out and won at Plumpton next time. And of course, Staghorn, you know, when you talk about flat horses running on winter ground, it always worries you a little bit. But he was a 10-length winner on every ground at Goodwood. He was a 9-length winner on soft ground at Pontefract over 2 mile 2. He obviously stays really well, So he's, for me, I think he's the most likely winner because he's got that talent. He was 4th to Stratham in the Queen Alexandra as well. He definitely stays. That again was on soft ground. So, yeah, I think he's the most likely winner in a race that is far, far tighter than the odds suggest. There's another horse here, and I can't quite remember what the name of it is because it's a long one. How do you like me now? Absolutely hacked up last time. It was only a handicap off a mark in the 120s or whatever, but it's the sort of thing that Lossiemouth did before winning that Winter Novices Hurdle at Sandown. And it's just a horse that's obviously come to himself and is going really well. I mean, he's done a fair bit of winning already. I think he's quite a talented horse, and he's a double-figure price. So I think Staghorn, I'm going to tip Staghorn, but I may have a little saver on him as well. I think this is much tighter than the betting suggests.
Excellent. 2 votes for Staghorn. OK, before we tackle our other 3 featured TV races, a couple of talking points that this week has thrown up. First of all, Royal Ascot, they're going to dial back on the crowds this summer. Now, obviously, we've been moaning about not having anyone at the racing, and then we've had, the odd couple of thousand people rattling around that lovely great big grandstand. But now, when we thought we were going to get that usual traditional seething mass of colour and joy and laughter, they're just going to drop it back a little bit and make it a little bit more comfortable. Keels, when you go to these big meetings, Royal Ascot, and we finally got you along to Royal Ascot, didn't we, for the first time a couple of years ago. Do you like that kind of absolutely swarming mass of people, or can you see where they're coming from here with Ascot?
I love an atmosphere, but there's your Cheltenham atmosphere where everyone's there for the racing, and there's your Ascot atmosphere where everyone's there for the booze and the social occasions. It's a little bit different. But I will say, I went to Royal Ascot for the first time. I've avoided it for most of my life just for the reason that I want the racing rather than the. But I went with you that day. It was a Friday, and I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. I thought it was perfectly reasonable. You could get a drink. There was, we went and had something to eat, no problem whatsoever. Sat down straight away. I didn't think there was much of a problem. And it was a big crowd then. Champions Day was dreadful. Right? And it was dreadful because they couldn't staff it.
That was the trouble. That's a COVID issue.
If there's a staffing issue, I can understand it. But cutting back. I didn't see the reason to cut back on the Friday of Royal Ascot. I thought it was perfectly comfortable for me. And I'm the sort of person that likes to go winter jump racing when the crowds ain't big. I thought Sandown was fantastic on Saturday. I mean, it was chucking it down with rain, but you could go wherever you wanted.
And you could get a drink nice and easily.
You could get a drink nice and easy, yeah, no problem. But by the same token, I didn't think it was that hard at Ascot, at Royal Ascot.
No, I must admit, I agree with you. I'm slightly surprised, Pat, and I wonder whether this, it's not a smokescreen by any means, but, staffing issues for racecourses are a problem regardless of COVID, because the casual workforce, a lot of them were overseas workers who haven't come back. And it is difficult. I know it's an ongoing problem for racecourses to actually staff the bars and restaurants. So it might be that this is a sort of happy accident, but... Are you one of these guys, Pat? I mean, you're obviously in the sanctuary of the press box or a private box, aren't you? But when you do deign to walk through the masses, do you like it to be a little bit calmer? Yeah,
I can mix with the kings and the commoners. I was at Royal Ascot for the whole 5-day meeting, 3 years ago. Like Keels, I didn't think there was a problem at all. The car parks, it was a very, very well-run show. The car parks were fine, drove in, drove out. I never felt I was crushed like sardines in a can. I thought it was very manageable. I was surprised to read it, but if they're listening to, they canvassed opinions and they've honoured that. Of course, the caveat is there's less people going and the prices have gone up. So, you lose one and you gain in the other. I didn't think there was any call for it, but, as I say, they've new personnel there. They wanted opinions, they got them and they've reacted to them, but not something I've ever seen as a problem.
Now, the Friday of Cheltenham is an absolute seething mass of people. That's absolutely true. And obviously the highlight that day is the Cheltenham Gold Cup. And they still haven't got a sponsor. This is very peculiar. Magna's obviously pulled out. Last year, it ran in the name of that brilliant charity, Well Child. You would have hoped that someone would have come along and sponsored the race now, Pat. I mean, are they holding out for a non-bookmaker sponsor? Is that why there's this issue? And also, the other question I've got for you, is it a race that you, me, Keels, I don't know about you, but to me, the Cheltenham Gold Cup is the race. If I could only watch one horse race in a year, it would be that. But is it a race that maybe doesn't have that cut through with the public? Who, let's face it, if you did Family Fortunes and you said, well, name a horse race, it'd be Grand National 1, it'd be Derby 2, and then who knows what number 3 would be? Yeah,
they're hamstrung somewhat, aren't they? Because it was suggested that with the Grand National of a few years ago, we'd rather not it be bookmaker sponsored. So that straight away took at least half a dozen main players out the equation for that. Maybe it's the same again for the Gold Cup, although bookmakers have sponsored it in the past. You do wonder, you're desperately short of time. Who wants to sponsor it now and not get the publicity and the build-up to it? I went on the escalator down from Waterloo, and they've still got the Boxing Day posters at Kempton up. So you'd want to be having your posters up, advertising it. They're running desperately short of time for it. I can't see how anybody is going to be mad keen to do it. And, of course, jump racing is different from the flat. You haven't got the, Dubai superpowers looking at it going, that's okay, we'll sponsor the car, because jump racing isn't their thing. So who is it going to be? I could only presume it might be an airline, Aer Lingus. Why would Ryanair want to sponsor it? They have their own special day with their big race. I could definitely see it being run without a sponsor, which would be a shame, wouldn't it?
It certainly would. Keels, if you were only watching 5 horse races in a year, what would they be?
Cool. Gold Cup, Champion Hurdle. The novice handicap chase that no longer exists.
Oh, I should have known that one, of course. Yeah, that would be the top answer on Family Fortunes.
Yeah, the Grand National. I'm a big fan of the Welsh National, actually, as well. So
really?
Yeah.
Any flat races?
No, not really. No.
Really?
No.
Oh, you'd have to have the Arc in there, wouldn't you?
No.
Doesn't the Arc get the half
the Arc gets you going and all that. But if you said 5 races, they would all be jumps for me.
No Kentucky Derby or Breeders'
Cup?
No, don't
you dare. One, and don't you dare call it Derby. It drives me mental. It's Derby. Nobody else, you don't say any other word the way the Americans say it other than Derby.
I don't think you've ever watched that, have you?
I have seen it, obviously, but normally in a replay, yeah.
Let's get back to Keels' beloved jump racing. Right then, the big handicap on Saturday takes place at 2:40 at Kempton. It's the Coral Lanzarote Hurdle, a tricky test. Always. Keels, do you remember Marie's Rock when she rattled off those first 3 wins at the back end of 2019? We were discussing how she could be absolutely anything. Went off the boil, came back and won the other day and now heads the market. Worthy favourite? Will you be sticking with her?
I don't know, because she's gone up £9 for winning what was, I think, a soft enough race. I'm not sure they were. You know, it's one of those where she just bounced back, isn't it? And you don't know why. I mean, when she ran off that sequence, I was all over for the Mares' Novice at Cheltenham. I was getting on good prices, and then she got injured and didn't get there, and it went back. She may be back, but she's back onto almost a career high mark now, having gone up £9 for that. And this is a really tough race, isn't it? I mean, it's had this massive cash injection. So you've got the same number of runners, but you've got a lot more unexposed runners than you'd normally get. I mean, the race was last year won by 66 to 1 shot Bowen Bill, wasn't it? Like, you know, so there are some sexy improvers in the race, I think, and it might be hard.
Who's going to win?
Well, I mean, talking about sexy improvers, my initial thought earlier in the week was Chittabello, but it was 20 to 1. The price ran away from me before I could get on, and I'm thinking, you know, you can really make a case for him because he's dropped massively in the handicap. He's actually won 2 nice races. He got a bad injury. They thought he might not even come back to racing, but he's won 2 nice races, and he's dropped down to a really good mark. He's got this amateur Tristan Dole on. I tell people not to worry about that. He's okay. 2, 6 of the last 8 winners have been won by claiming jockeys of this race. But he's an 11-year-old, and he's 8 to 1 now. Like, you know, and I think he'd drift. I think you might get bigger on the day. I certainly wouldn't be taking, if you can't get best odds guaranteed, I'd certainly wait with him. I think he's got a chance, but I've gone down the sexy unexposed route now. There's a horse called Cobbler's Dream, who is trained by Ben Case, who trained Croco Rouge to win a Grand Annual a few years ago, for the same owner. Now, this horse looked really, really good in a 2-mile 3 furlong bumper at Cork when trained in Ireland. Came over to Ben Case, won his first race over 2 mile. Then got really outpaced over 2 mile at Kempton in a 4-runner race. Stepped up in trip since then, ran second to a horse called Thunder Rock, who Ollie Murphy thinks an awful lot of, and he was given £6 that day. And then he's bolted up over 2 mile 3.5 at Doncaster. He beat Leon Cavallo, who's one of those really, really solid handicap yardsticks. You know, he's finished second to Soaring Glory earlier this year. People were talking about Soaring Glory being a champion hurdle horse after that. Like, you know, and he's dealt with him really easily. Travelled really well, jumped well. I like the way he goes. He's got a lower mark than you would have expected, given the way he won that bumper over that trip at Limerick. So I do like him at about 12 to 1. I know Pat quite likes Gelino Bello, so I won't spoil it. I can definitely see the case for him.
So who is the actual tip then?
Cobbler's Dream.
Cobbler's Dream for Keels. Pat?
Well, it's interesting. I spoke to one of the fellas in the office on Monday afternoon when the entries came through, and I said, which 2 would you fancy? Which are the best 2 handicapped in the race? And he said Chittabello and William Henry. Well, one's 11 and one's 12. And I was saying, well, I like to go for the unexposed, you know, type. So, I could see money for William Henry. So I think he's 33 to 1. He has a chance. I keep coming back to Gelino Bello of Paul Nicholls. Now, if you think Charles Burns' Blazing Cal is a legitimate favourite for the Albert Bartlett, and he's 4 to 1 favourite as we speak, well, this fella's been second to him twice. He gets in off this race of 11 stone 6. He's only a novice. I can certainly see him running a mighty race, but there's a lot of unexposed horses in this race, and 8 of them won last time out. They've got progressive profiles. So I think it's a deep old race. Marie's Rock, no bargain really at current prices. So I'll go for Gelino Bello on the basis I think Blazing Cal is a worthy favourite for its Cheltenham race, and therefore the form ties in quite neatly.
It is a very deep race, a very tricky race. Hopefully the lads have helped you find the winner there. OK, Stamina is the name of the game in the 3 o'clock at Warwick. It's the Agatur UK Classic Chase over 3 miles and 5 furlongs. Pat, a strong fancy here?
I think it's hard to have a strong fancy. Certainly if you're going by the money, David Pipesaw's Jericho Rock has been the big order during the week. Lightly race, progressive novice. I can certainly see that one would have a solid chance. The top weight is Corrack Rambler, Lucinda Russell, stable going ever so well. And I think he impressed just about everybody with a fluent win at Cheltenham last time out, but they're easy to find at the top of the market. So I was scratching around trying to find alternatives. Not a chance. He's got miserable form figures, PPP6, but he won this race a year ago off 139. He showed a bit more last time out at Haydock, and he's got a first-time visor, so he can certainly bounce back. If you fancy him, you'll have to fancy Akil, who was second in this race to Not a Chance a year ago. Ran okay in the Welsh National. I keep coming back to other horses. I like Paddle Your Own Canoe for the Skelton team. Now, when he made his first run this season for the stable, he went off at 40-1, which would imply not a great deal was expected, and he ran a perfectly decent race to finish third. So he'd be my selection, I think, when he's bound to improve for that. Be remiss of me not to mention one at a sexy price, number 13, No Rematch. Evan Williams, Adam Wedge, they seem to do well with staying chases. This lad pulled up last time up, but he travelled well for a while. There's been money around for him. People are sniffing around, taking the 40, the 33. He could be one of those horses that goes off around about 12 or 14 and be bang there for a long way. So I wouldn't put anyone off a few quid on him. But for a selection, I'm going to paddle my own canoe.
Jolly good. OK, are you going to go with the flow with Paddle Your Own Canoe, or are you going to swim against the tide, Kills?
I'm going to end up swinging against the tide. Now, I do think Jericho Rock might be hard to beat. He was a close second in the Mandarin just before the New Year at Newbury, and he pulled clear with the favourite, and they pulled clear with a horse called Nestor Park, who I backed, and who runs like clockwork around Newbury, runs really well all the time, and had gone very close in the race before and was off a similar mark. I think that's very strong form. But he's short enough now. He's 4-1 in a competitive race, and I've come round to having I always have a look on Monday, Anti-Post, and I have another look after the decks, and I've come round to a horse that he's had a lot of, he's got a lot of black marks next to his name, but he's got a lot of talent, and it's the Hollow Ginge. Now, I backed him first time out of Cheltenham this year, and he just got beat. Just got beat by a gambled on Gordon Elliott. And then he pulled up in the Ladbrokes Trophy. But I looked at the race again, and I'd forgotten just how well he went in it. I mean, jumping the cross fence for the second time, he was in fourth and seemingly going pretty well. And at that point, most horses were already beaten because they go. It's one of those races where they go hell for leather from the off over distance. So, he had an awful lot of horses well beaten off. He's ended up getting very tired in the straight. They sent him for a wind-up. So I don't know whether his wind went or whatever, but they've sent him for a wind-up literally 5 days later. And now he's had a break. He's always been a horse that's gone well fresh. He ran a terrible race in this last year, but it was a week after running in the Welsh National, which had been delayed. So he comes here fresher after 7 weeks off. If he goes that well in a Hennessy like that, the ground isn't going to be as bad as it normally is at Warwick, because obviously there's been no rain for a while. I think it's going to be sort of good to soft, good to soft in places. If he can go that well in a race of that quality at Newbury, then he can go well in a race of this quality at Warwick for sure. So I think at a double-figure price, he's worth a bet.
I want to talk to you very quickly about wind-ups and what I consider there's loads of myths in racing, isn't there, and racing analysis. This thing about second time win is the time to catch them, because the first time is when they learn that they can breathe again and they get this confidence. Surely they learn to breathe again on the gallops.
Well,
they must gallop them before they have that first run back.
I think what they do is they don't really ride them out and punish them too hard at home.
Like, yeah, but if you're having a gallop, you
can't
not
no. I think generally the wind goes when they're really under pressure.
Okay.
Okay. And they won't have been. But he's had 7 weeks now. I don't think. Some horses will run through the pain barrel, or at least try to, and I think the Hollow Ginge is genuine enough.
Do you have a rule of thumb then with wind-ups now? Do you tend to prefer that second one, or are you happy to back them first one? What's the general rule of thumb?
It's one of those things. If I see a wind-up, I think it's half interesting, because that might be a reason why they didn't run so well last time. But other than that, I don't pay that much attention to them. And you've got to remember, the big yards like Paul Nicholls and Nicky Henderson, they all have wind-ups in the summer. Loads of them. A lot of them are just precautionary. So it doesn't actually worry me too much. But I do, if I see something like that where it's literally 5 days later, then obviously Sam Twiston-Davies has gone up and said he made a noise in the last couple of furlongs or whatever. So they've done a little bit of tweaking. So hopefully, now he's fresh, he'll be able to last a bit longer. He's in a much weaker race than that. And if you see the way he went through that race, you think, well, hang on a minute, he's in a plodders race at Warwick now, at a double-figure price. He must have a chance.
Plodders? How dare he? And finally, for the TV action on Saturday, it's the 3:35 at Warwick. It's the Potemps Network qualifier. And Pat, if there's as a punter, one of my faults is I see something and I know it's a trap and I fall for it every single time, and I see a trap here. It's a horse who should not be as big as he is. He's won the Potemps at the festival. He's second in the world in the Stayers Hurdle last time. Sire de Burley. Now, I'm going to back him at a massive price, and I know that he's just not quite going to get there. So why am I backing him? Should I be backing him?
Well, this is a very peculiar race. It's the Potemps qualifier. There's 7 runners, and the first 6 qualify for the final. So are we going to see them revved up and at the top of their game? All you have to do to qualify is beat one horse. It's a real conundrum. The horse that needs to win to get a rating high enough to get in the race is Riggs. So this is a classic 2 + 2 = 5, and it all points to Riggs. He needs to win. The others need to beat one home. I find it a real conundrum. I'm not sure the prices are right on this race at all. There's horses like the Jam Man, Ronan McNally, who most trading bookmakers are saying, this is a red-hot team. We're working on the basis he's coming over to qualify. But what if Saturday is the day for him? It's a real tricky race for him. Riggs will probably be favourite because most people are working on, he's the one that needs to win. Sire de Burley, I can see it. You know, Gordon Elliott coming over. You know, there's always money for his horses. But this is the Potemps.
It's a kick-yourself job. I mean,
yes.
We know that he's probably just coming over to get in and keep the weight down. But, you know, he's bigger than 6 to 1 at the moment, isn't he? I mean, I can't let that go by.
I think there's a lot of life in this market. It could be real wild as we get to the, when they're galloping down to the start. I've ended up looking at a horse like Alaphilippe with Fergal O'Brien, Paddy Brennan. Now, he's not run for 302 days, so where's he been? I don't know. Starting off in a Potemps qualifier. Maybe they've got Potemps...
Probably in the Tour de France.
Well, yeah, it could well be, pedalling away. But he was entered in the Stayers Hurdle at Cheltenham. He is entered in the Stayers Hurdle, of which, of course, he's 100 to 1, and why wouldn't he be? But why would you throw him in the Stayers Hurdle if you didn't think he had been doing well at home? Forget the 10-month absence. I can make a plausible case out for Alaphilippe, and he could be pedalling along in the peloton, couldn't he?
Are you getting all these Alaphilippe jokes? You do realise that
you've told me.
One of the best cyclists in the world is Julian Alaphilippe.
Yeah, you've told me this before because I like this horse.
So does Alaphilippe have a mountain to climb, or will he be wearing the yellow jersey at the end of the race?
He'll be wearing a yellow jersey, most definitely. Yeah,
really fancy him.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I mean the thing about these potential.
Can we get my Sire de Burley fetish out of the way first? Am I completely wrong?
No, listen, he's the class act in the race. He's getting on a bit. He's come over here for a reason. He gets in. He gets into the final without any problem whatsoever. You've got to remember, Gordon Elliott had half a dozen horses entered in this race. He's running one. Right, he's got He now knows the handicap marks for the other 6. Right, he's already known what Sire de Burley was going to get, and he knows the race is going to cut up because he can cut it up himself by taking 6 out. So he gets Sire de Burley into the race. Now, I would have thought with drying ground, Warwick isn't really Sire de Burley's track because it's quite sharp. I know it's 3 mile 1, but it's quite sharp. That would worry me because he's a proper strong stayer. And in a small field, I'd wonder whether he'd get a little bit outpaced. He is a class act of the race, don't get me wrong. Another thing about these Potemps races is everybody looks at them and think, full of non-triers are just going to sneak in the 4th and 5th and all that. It's absolute nonsense for most of them, right? There are loads of Potemps qualifiers, and there are loads of Potemps qualifiers in which you look at it and you think none of these have got an earthly of winning the final anyway, right? This isn't quite one of them, right? But it is a race. It is a race where most horses are every reason. Most of these horses will be off. They'll be trying. They won't just be trying to qualify, right? Because they've got no chance. A lot of them have got no chance. One that has got a chance of winning that is Alaphilippe if he goes that way. Now, Fergal O'Brien won the race last year with Imperial Alcazar, who ran really well in the final afterwards. And he's got Alaphilippe here. He was a good novice last year. He was at his best when he steps up to 2 mile 5. Won a graded race by a long way, and he was 5th in the Albert Bartlett. I don't know whether that made him the best of the British or not. Probably did.
I think so, yeah. The entire week.
You know what I mean? So he's a strong stayer. He's obviously been. He may have had an issue, but he's been primed for the second half of the season. He wants mud. He wants a bit of cut in the ground. He's rated 140. He's the one horse in the race. I don't think Riggs is all that good. He's the one horse in the race that could be rated a stone higher in a couple of months' time, and I don't think any of the others could be. So I think he'll win.
2 votes for Alaphilippe in the 335 at Warwick. Right then, chaps, thank you very much for your input this week. All that remains is to get the naps, and we'll start with Paul Kealy. If you're only having one bet on Saturday, who would it be?
Well, I won't be, but I hope I'm pressing up rather than trying to get it back, because it'll be Alaphilippe in the 335 at Warwick.
And Pat Cooney.
I'm going to the flat all-weather Chelmsford, the 6.15, number 1 Alman, A-L-M-A-A-N. Stepped up to this trip last time out, won ever so handily. Progressive. They know the trip, they know the track. I'd expect him to repeat his win of 9 days ago.
Don't talk to me about that race, because I had a tip for that, and there were 2 horses in there with virtually identical names, and I backed the wrong one. Anyway, the 240 at Kempton, the Lanzarote, is a race, as the lads have said, full of sexy improvers. So I'm going for the exposed 11-year-old. Lovely old Chittabello. If you're going to get some extra places, I don't see 6 of these beating him. He's a great each-way bet. Chittabello is my nap. OK, that's all. Thank you very much to Paul Kealy. Thank you very much to Pat Cooney. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. Thank you for joining us. Thanks also to Jeremy Scott. Let's hope he gets the job done at Kempton with Champagne Court. Enjoy the weekend. There's some great racing. Don't forget, though, above all, bet responsibly. Dave's back next week for another What a Shout.